I met Jake in middle school. We clicked instantly, shared the same sense of humor, love for video games, and general awkwardness around girls. His place became my second home, especially after my parents split. Jake's mom, Natalie, was the kind of woman you didn't expect to be a mom of a teenager. Not just because she was beautiful, but because she had this calm, elegant vibe about her. She was warm, but never overbearing. She remembered small things I told her, like how I liked my grilled cheese or that I hated orange juice with pulp. It sounds dumb, but when you're a kid coming from a house that barely noticed you were there, stuff like that sticks. She treated me like I mattered, not in a flirty way. Not then. She just noticed me in a way that made me feel seen. She'd ask how school was going, actually listen when I answered. There was this night during freshman year when my mom forgot to pick me up from school after band practice. It was freezing, and I was just standing out there like an idiot. I texted Jake, and 10 minutes later, Natalie pulled up. She didn't say much, just handed me a warm thermos of tea, asked if I was okay. That ride home was one of the few times I remember feeling safe. Over the years, it became kind of routine. I'd stay for dinner, hang out with Jake, crash on their couch if it got too late. She was always there, like this steady, graceful presence. Never judgmental, always chill. She'd tease Jake sometimes, or ruffle my hair when I beat them both at Mario Kart. Just this easy energy that made everything around her feel less heavy. By the time we hit high school, I started noticing more than just her kindness. I noticed the way she dressed, nothing wild, but fitted sweaters, soft perfume, hair that always smelled like coconut, and something else I couldn't name. She moved differently from the girls at school. Confident but subtle. I'd catch myself watching her a second too long. Then I'd feel gross, shake it off, remind myself she was my best friend's mom. But those thoughts didn't stop. I think she knew, too. Not in a creepy way, more like she noticed the shift. Sometimes I'd look up from my phone and catch her looking at me from across the kitchen. Not staring, just pausing. Her smile would soften. Once, when Jake ran out to grab snacks, we were alone for 5 minutes, and she asked me how things were with my dad. I hadn't seen him in months. I told her that. She just nodded, said, "I'm sorry, that's not fair to you." Her hand brushed mine on the counter. Not even a full touch. Just enough to send this electric jolt up my arm. She didn't pull away, right away either. And neither did I. Still, nothing happened. No lines were crossed. I kept coming over. I kept watching her. More than I should have. I memorized the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was tired. The way she hummed softly when she thought no one could hear. It started to feel like I knew her better than anyone else did. Or maybe I just wanted to. There was this day sophomore year, Jake had the flu, and I came over to drop off his homework. Natalie answered the door, wearing an oversized sweater and leggings, her hair in a loose bun. She looked tired but smiled when she saw me. "You're sweet to come," she said. We talked for a few minutes. Just small stuff. But as I turned to leave, she called out, "You've really grown up this year." I turned around, surprised. She was looking at me differently. Not like a mom. Not like a friend. Something else. I said, "Thanks," because I didn't know what else to say. That moment stayed with me for months. From that point, I started to feel different around her. More aware of how close she stood. How often her touches lingered. One afternoon, she handed me a mug, and our fingers locked for half a second too long. It wasn't just me anymore, she was feeling it too. I could see it in the way her eyes held mine before looking away. I didn't know what to do with that. It made me feel powerful and ashamed at the same time. At school, everything felt boring. Girls my age felt loud, immature. I started comparing everyone to her. Her patience, her voice, her quiet presence. It wasn't fair, but I couldn't help it. She had this effect on me I couldn't explain. It wasn't just physical, it was deeper. Like she got me, even when I didn't say much. Like she saw parts of me I didn't know were visible. There was one night junior year, Jake had fallen asleep early after a long day. I was still up, sitting on the couch scrolling through my phone. Natalie walked in, holding a glass of wine. "Mind if I join you?" she asked. I shrugged. Tried to act casual, but my heart was pounding. She sat on the other side of the couch, tucked her feet under her. We didn't talk much. Just sat there in the glow of the TV. But I felt every inch of space between us. Every breath she took. At one point, our knees brushed. Neither of us moved. Then she laughed softly at something on the show. It startled me, made me look at her. She turned her head, and for a split second, our eyes locked in a way that made my stomach turn over. Something unspoken passed between us. She looked away first, said goodnight quietly, and disappeared down the hallway.
I didn't sleep at all that night.
That was the turning point. After that, I knew something had changed. It wasn't just a crush anymore. It wasn't admiration or misplaced emotion. There was a connection between us that was becoming impossible to ignore. Every time I came over, I felt it growing. Jake was clueless, of course. Still my best friend. Still trusted me. And that made everything worse. I started questioning everything. Was I imagining it? Was I reading into things because I wanted them to be there? But then she'd look at me that way again. Or touch my arm and let it stay just a second longer than necessary. I wasn't imagining it. I knew I wasn't. There was a quiet kind of tension between us now. Not the awkward kind, more like a current that buzzed under the surface. She never said anything outright. Neither did I. But the air felt charged every time we were alone. I started timing my visits to when I knew Jake would be busy, hoping for a chance to just be near her. Even if nothing happened, being in the same room felt intoxicating. I hated myself for it, but I couldn't stop. It felt inevitable. Like we were both inching toward a line we knew we weren't supposed to cross, but neither of us was stepping back. I didn't know where it would lead. I just knew that every time I looked at her, it felt less like guilt and more like gravity. It started on a Thursday. Jake and his dad were heading out of town for a weekend fishing trip. I wasn't supposed to come by, but I'd left my charger at their place earlier that week. I figured I'd just swing by, grab it, and leave. When I got there, Natalie answered the door in a soft gray top and jeans. Barefoot.
Casual, relaxed. She smiled when she saw me.
Didn't expect you, she said, stepping aside. I told her about the charger, and she waved me in like it was nothing. The house was quiet. Too quiet without Jake's usual noise. I found the charger and was about to head out when she asked if I wanted to stay for a bit. I just opened a bottle of wine. You don't have to rush. It felt wrong to say yes. I said yes anyway. She poured me a glass, handed it over like we'd done this 100 times before. We sat on the couch. She asked about school. I answered. Nothing heavy, at first. Just conversation. But something was different. She sat a little closer than usual. Her knee almost touched mine. Her voice was low, soft. She was more relaxed than I'd ever seen her. Eventually, the conversation turned to Jake's dad. Her face changed when she mentioned him. There was a tiredness there. We've been more like roommates for a while now, she said.
He's not a bad man.
We just stopped seeing each other. I nodded, not sure what to say. You ever feel like someone sees right through you? She asked, more to herself than to me. I just looked at her. She met my eyes. You always listen, she said, smiling faintly. I like that about you. I took a sip of wine to kill the silence. She leaned back, pulled her legs under her. Her shirt shifted slightly, revealing a sliver of skin at her hip. I tried not to look.
Failed.
She caught me. Didn't flinch. Didn't adjust. She asked if I'd ever been in love. I said no, not really. She laughed. Good. Don't rush it. Most of it's just pretending to feel something you're not sure about yet. I asked if she regretted marrying young. She didn't answer for a moment, then said sometimes. The wine made everything feel slower. Her words, her movements. She reached over to take my empty glass. Our fingers brushed. She didn't let go right away. Neither did I. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. She leaned in a little, searching my face. I didn't move. Couldn't. I didn't know if I was supposed to say something or back away. She was so close I could smell the citrus from her shampoo. Then she kissed me. It wasn't rushed or messy. It was calm, certain, like she'd already made the decision long before I walked in. I froze at first. Then I kissed her back. It felt like something crashing through me and melting at the same time. There was no space for guilt, just sensation.
Heat.
Her fingers curled into my shirt like she needed it, like she needed me. We broke apart for a second, breathing hard, eyes locked. She whispered, "Are you sure?" I nodded without hesitation. I didn't even think. I just wanted more. What happened next wasn't planned. It didn't feel like a choice. It felt like inevitability. Every second, every glance, every small touch we'd ignored had been pushing us here. Now we weren't ignoring it anymore. We crossed that line, and there was no going back. It wasn't quick or wild. It was slow, intentional, like we both needed to feel every second of it. Her skin was warm, soft, familiar and unfamiliar all at once. I memorized everything. Every breath, every quiet sound, every shift. She guided things and I followed. It didn't feel like I was doing something forbidden.
Not then.
It felt like I belonged there. After, we just lay there. Neither of us said anything for a while. The room was quiet except for the faint hum of the fridge in the kitchen. I stared at the ceiling, still trying to process what just happened. She turned to me, her fingers lightly tracing my arm.
I didn't know what to say.
I think she didn't either. She broke the silence. "I'm not proud of this," she said, "but I don't regret it." I wanted to ask her what this meant, if it would happen again, but the words stuck in my throat. I just nodded. I didn't trust myself to say anything that wouldn't ruin the moment. Eventually, I stood up and started gathering my stuff. She didn't stop me. She just watched me from the couch, silent. I could feel her eyes on me the whole time. At the door, she touched my wrist. "Be careful," she said quietly. I nodded again, stepped out into the night, and closed the door behind me. I walked home in a daze. The streets were empty. The cold didn't touch me. My brain kept looping through what just happened. I knew this changed everything. I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. And even though I knew it would wreck things eventually, all I could think about was her voice, the way she looked at me, the way she said my name like it meant something. I didn't feel guilty.
Not yet.
That would come later. Right then, I just felt alive. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm, staring at the ceiling like my brain had short-circuited. My phone buzzed, just a simple message from her. "You okay?" I stared at it for a long time before replying. "Yeah. You?" She didn't respond right away. When she finally did, she said, "Let's pretend everything's normal for now." I agreed, but nothing felt normal. Seeing Jake at school the following Monday made it worse. He was laughing, messing around like always, totally unaware that something irreversible had happened. I forced a smile, made small talk, pretended like I wasn't carrying the weight of a secret that could tear his life apart. Every time he mentioned his mom, I felt something twist in my stomach. I avoided going to their house for a while. Told Jake I was swamped with school, helping my mom, whatever I could make up that sounded real. I couldn't face her. I didn't trust myself. I thought if I stayed away, maybe it would fade, maybe it was just one mistake. But it didn't fade. She texted me 2 weeks later. "I miss talking to you." I read it 10 times before replying. We agreed to meet, just to talk. We sat in her car, parked far from anyone we knew. She looked tired. I asked if she was okay. She said she wasn't sleeping much.
Neither was I.
"I can't stop thinking about that night," she said. "I know it's wrong, but I don't regret it." I told her I felt the same. We didn't kiss. We didn't touch. But the pull was there, stronger than ever. When she dropped me off, she reached for my hand and just held it for a second. No words. That moment said enough. After that, we kept finding reasons to see each other. I'd walk to the grocery store, and she'd just happen to drive by. Sometimes we'd talk in her car. Sometimes she'd drive me somewhere random just to have a conversation without eyes on us. We didn't always do anything physical. Sometimes it was just silence, just the feeling of being around each other. But the line had already been crossed, and it kept getting easier to cross it again. I told myself it was real, that it wasn't just lust. And maybe part of it was. But I also knew that a big part of it came from the thrill, the danger, the secrecy. Every time we were together, I felt something intense that I couldn't get anywhere else. I also felt like a fraud. Being around Jake got harder. I stopped replying to texts as fast. Avoided hanging out at his house. He noticed. One day he asked me straight up, "Are you mad at me or something?" I shook my head and made some excuse about stress. He believed me. I hated how easily he trusted me. I started seeing her more, usually when Jake and his dad were out. The risk was part of the routine now. Doors always locked. Phones always on silent. It became a cycle: see her, feel high, leave, feel hollow. The come down was always brutal. I'd sit on my bed afterward, staring at my reflection like I didn't recognize the person in the mirror. She started texting more often. Not just when we were planning to meet, but random things. Good morning texts. Late night thoughts. Things that made it feel like we were in a relationship. And in some twisted way, we were. A hidden one. A selfish one. But it was real while it lasted. Then came the shift. She started asking more personal questions. If I ever thought about us being public. If I ever imagined what would happen if we got caught. I avoided the questions. She didn't press, but I could feel the pressure building. She was getting attached in a way that scared me. I started to realize I didn't know what she wanted, or maybe I did, and I didn't want the same. We had an argument once. She said she felt like I was pulling away. I told her I wasn't, but she didn't believe me. "You're different," she said. Colder. I didn't know how to explain that I was starting to drown in the guilt of it all. It wasn't just about Jake anymore.
It was about me.
About the person I was becoming. Things escalated the night Jake almost caught us. We were in the kitchen, nothing physical, just talking. But the energy was there. The way she leaned against the counter, the way I looked at her. Jake walked in through the garage earlier than expected. I panicked. She didn't flinch, didn't act weird. Said we were just catching up. Jake raised an eyebrow, but let it go. Later, he texted me. "You and my mom talk a lot these days, huh?" I left him on read. After that, I became paranoid. I kept checking over my shoulder. Every text from her felt like a risk. I started having dreams where everything blew up. Jake finding out, his dad losing it, her breaking down. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, heart racing. And still I kept going back. I didn't know how to stop. Every time I tried to pull away, she'd say something that pulled me right back in. "I need you. You're the only one who really sees me. This doesn't feel wrong when I'm with you." And part of me believed it. Part of me wanted to believe I was saving her from something. But the truth was, I was just destroying everything quietly, piece by piece. One night, I asked her what she really wanted. She said she didn't know. She was scared.
Trapped.
Alone. I didn't have an answer either. We sat in silence, knowing we'd built something out of desperation and escape, not love. That silence told me everything. I left that night feeling like something had ended, even if we hadn't said it out loud. Weeks passed, and we both started to pull back without saying it. The messages slowed down. The meetings stopped altogether. She didn't text me good morning anymore.
I didn't ask why.
We both knew. Whatever it was between us, it had reached its limit. There was no clean way to end it, no final word or closure. It just faded in that slow, heavy way things do when the damage is already done. I went back to pretending, hanging out with Jake again, showing up like nothing had ever happened. It was harder than I thought. He'd crack jokes or bring up memories from when we were younger, and I'd feel it, this ugly sting of how far I'd fallen. Every time I walked into that house now, the air felt different, colder. Her presence didn't feel warm anymore. It felt loaded. She barely made eye contact. She stayed in other rooms. It was clear. Distance was her way of ending it without confrontation. I mirrored it. Still, there was always that tension. That unspoken thread that hadn't snapped, only stretched thin enough to almost disappear. Every now and then, our eyes would meet for half a second longer than they should. Not with desire anymore, just acknowledgement. A quiet, mutual understanding of what we did and what it cost. I started seeing someone my age a month later. A girl from school. Sweet, funny, uncomplicated. She liked the same music I did. She didn't know anything about my past, and for a while I let myself enjoy the normalcy. The dates, the texts, the silly conversations that didn't carry any weight. I tried to feel something deeper. I tried to forget. But Natalie stayed in my head like background noise. No matter how far I moved forward, some part of me was still stuck in that living room, in that moment, in that kiss. Things between Jake and his mom got weird. He said she was distant lately, seemed distracted. He thought it was about his dad. They're probably splitting soon, he said one night, like it didn't really bother him. I didn't know what to say. I just nodded, pretending to be a bystander in something I'd helped break. One afternoon, Jake told me they were moving. His dad got a job offer in another state. His mom wasn't going with him. She was staying behind. They're separating, he said, casual, like it was expected. I nodded again. He asked if I could help them pack over the weekend. I said yes before I could stop myself. That weekend felt surreal. Walking through that house, boxing up memories, pretending I hadn't crossed every boundary inside those walls. She barely spoke to me. She thanked me politely, avoided being alone with me. Her eyes were tired. Her hands moved like she was forcing herself to stay busy, like stillness would break her. At one point, we ended up in the kitchen, just the two of us. She looked up at me, just for a moment, then back down. I hope you're doing okay, she said softly. I told her I was fine. She nodded. Good. That was it. The last real thing she ever said to me. Jake left a week later. The house was sold within a month. I stood across the street the day the moving truck pulled away, watching the front door shut behind someone else. Just like that, it was over. No drama. No confrontation. Just silence. The guilt didn't hit all at once. It came in waves. Late at night, when my phone stayed quiet. During conversations with Jake, when he'd talk about his mom, and I'd feel like the biggest liar alive. I never told him. I never will. There's no version of that truth that doesn't destroy him. Years passed. We lost touch. Jake moved on. Got into college. New friends, new life. I stayed in the same city for school. Kept my head down. Dated a few people. Never really let anyone get close. There was always a wall. A part of me that stayed locked away. I saw her once, 2 years later, in a grocery store. She looked different. Lighter. Healthier. She was with someone, older guy, looked stable. She didn't see me. I didn't let her. I watched for a minute, then left. That night, I thought about everything. About how something that felt so powerful in the moment could eventually feel like a scar. Not because it wasn't real, but because it wasn't right. We weren't meant to be anything. We were a mistake that looked like salvation when everything else felt broken. People romanticize forbidden things. They think secrecy makes something deeper, more meaningful. But in reality, it just traps you. Makes you lie to people who don't deserve it. Makes you carry something you can't share. And eventually, it makes you question who you are and what you're capable of. I don't think she was evil. I don't think I was either. We were just two people in pain trying to feel something again. But we used the wrong thing to do it. We turned each other into escape routes. And even if I'll never forget her, I know I don't miss her.
Not really.
I miss who I thought I was when I was with her. I miss feeling wanted. But that feeling came with a price that never really goes away. I still think about telling Jake sometimes. Just laying it all out. But I never do. Some truths don't fix anything. They just shift the pain onto someone else. So I live with it. Quietly. Fully aware of what I did. And who it made me. It didn't ruin my life. But it changed it. Quietly. Permanently. Like a splinter you can't see, but still feel. And maybe that's what I deserve. Not punishment. Just the weight of knowing. Forever.